Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and today I got a package I'm going to open up for you. This comes from Israel, and I don't think I've ever actually got anything from Israel before, so that's pretty cool. So the deal with this is that it is a power cable. Don't tune out, I swear it's exciting. Just hang on. If you're into retro gaming, you're going to like this. So what we have in this box is supposedly, and we'll find out for ourselves at the end of this, is the ultimate retro game console power supply. And what that basically means is this power cable is supposed to work with almost every retro video game console ever made, all through one cable. Told you, it's kind of exciting. So let's go ahead and open it up and take a look at it, shall we? Which might take a moment because it's pretty well packaged. So the deal with this is, there was a guy named Ben who contacted me. He saw my 4th video game generation retrospective series where I was talking about like the Sega CD and the Sega 32X and how one of the problems with them is that they require their own power supplies. And so, you know, if you have those, plus you have the Genesis Mega Drive, you basically are looking at 3 giant power bricks all at once and how that was just a big mistake. And he said, you know, I could help alleviate that or raise awareness about how that's not a problem anymore by, you know, basically gifting you this. So he was cool enough to just send this to me, and I thought, what the hell, let's talk about it. So inside, down at the bottom here, we have the cable, which is packaged pretty well, and here it is. Now, the deal with this is, he ships out with this one power brick like this, and it's called the RetroDC, in case anybody's curious. He even put my name on it, how nice was that? And then it includes this little adapter. Now you plug this in here, obviously, and then on the other end, you end up with these 4 cables, which we'll talk about in a moment. This cable will work anywhere in the world, as far as I know, at least in all the major regions that would be watching this video. But you may have to take an extra step depending on certain countries. But it should work with all of these various consoles. Now, I should have mentioned this before. There's a link in the description to the website where you can get this if you want to, but also there, what's really important to look at is the compatibility list. He made a nice, big, formal list that's got pretty pictures and everything and shows you all the consoles of which ones this works with. Now, it works with a long list of them. I mean, you know, some obscure stuff like the Sega Wonder Mega and somewhat less obscure, but still kind of like the Super Famicom. But then it also works with ones that got me excited, like I said, the Genesis combos, and any version of those too. Like, so you can have the Sega CDX and the 32X, or you could have the Sega CD Model 1 with the Sega Genesis Model 2, or just whatever. You can combine them however you like. Like I said, he's got a full list. But it also works with things like the Famicom and the Famicom Disk System, the Jaguar and the Jaguar CD, etc. So that's what got me excited. So that's where these 4 points come in. So you can plug these into the various consoles that they're compatible with and the various combinations that are necessary. So that's pretty cool. However, there's one thing worth noting with this. While you could theoretically plug this into like 4 different consoles all at once, and then if you wanted, I guess you could try to turn them all on, that wouldn't be advised. I actually asked him that question. He was like, well, if you do that, you'll probably pop a fuse. But he's like, I did prepare for that. There is a fuse that's inside this thing that is easily replaced. But he also offers coverage up to 6 months if, you know, something happens to it. But basically, as long as you don't do anything like that, you don't try to power 4 different consoles all at once, you'll probably be fine. And that wasn't even sure because that would happen, but that was his guess. So yeah, at this point, I'm basically going to go ahead and try it out, put a couple of stress tests on it, and tell you what I think of it. But there is one thing I do need to note about this before we get into it. One criticism that isn't really its fault. This is more Nintendo's fault. The one console that's really missing from the compatibility list that really hurts is the North American Super Nintendo. And that's not that the device couldn't power it. The problem is Nintendo used a very unique shape for the power supply, and he wasn't really able to replicate that. So aside from that one, it's a really long, awesome list of things. So I'm going to go ahead and try it on some of these and tell you what I think. So I've been using this thing for a while, and so it's time for final thoughts. The short version is, I think it's pretty good, and you should probably check it out. But if you want more information, I'm happy to give it to you. Now, you may have noticed, the first thing I need to say here is you may have noticed that when I opened it, it really only had this thing. It didn't have the figure 8 cable. Now, there's a reason for that. I have a bunch of these, so I didn't need another one. However, if you actually do buy it, he includes the appropriate figure 8 cable for your region. Well, technically, he includes a European-style figure 8 cable, but also includes a North American or Japanese adapter, so you can just plug the European one into that and then into your wall in North America. However, my guess is, honestly, if you're anything like me, you probably have a bunch of these laying around. I mean, they came with the PS1, the PS2, the PS3, the PS4, the original Xbox, the Sega Saturn, the Sega Dreamcast, and a whole host of other electronic devices. You're probably okay in that department. One somewhat criticism of that, which I kind of touched on earlier, is that if you live in the UK or Australia, you will have an additional step. When you get it, you will need some kind of adapter to use the specific prongs that you guys use. If you have a figure 8 cable like this, let's say you're in the UK and you have a figure 8 cable with the UK like prongs, you're good. That's it. That's all you have to do at that point. But it is something worth noting. So one thing I really like about this device is that it is like a laptop style, meaning it's got this, the supply in the middle, which is awesome because, again, if you think about it, this thing powers multiple consoles, and at the end of it, it's just this one damn thing. It's not a giant power brick and multiple power bricks in some cases, which is awesome. One other thing I absolutely love about it is that it has an LED on it. It's blue for anybody who cares. But basically you plug it in and you got the LED. Now why does that matter? Well, if you're into retro gaming, you know consoles can have problems working. And sometimes you're like, well, what's the issue? Is it the console? Is it the power supply? Is it this? Is it that? Well, this, because it has a light on it, lets you know, all right, it's definitely not the power supply, or definitely is the power supply. Like, it'll immediately narrow that problem down, which is nice when you're trying to use the scientific method to determine what is wrong with a console. So that's a plus. Now I put it through a few different stress tests. The first thing was that I hooked up 3 different consoles to it at the same time. However, I did not turn them all on at the same time. I can't stress this enough. Do not do that. It even says like straight up on here, don't do that unless it's in a pre-approved combination, which again, all the combinations and all the consoles it's compatible with, link in the description, check it out. But yeah, I hooked it up to multiple consoles and they all worked fine. None of them had any issues, which was great. Then I hooked it up to some of the combos. I hooked it up to the Famicom disk system, with of course the Famicom, worked just fine. Hooked it up to the Atari Jaguar and the Jaguar CD. Ran a music CD on it, worked just fine. Then I connected it to the Sega Genesis, Sega CD, Sega 32X combo, ran a music CD on it, it worked just fine. So then I ran the ultimate stress test on it, which is what led me to my one and only criticism, which I'll talk about in a moment. And for that stress test, I ran Slam City with Scottie Pippen. Now, the game sucks, and that's not the stress, but it was stressful to try and play this. But the reason this was a thing you would want to try stressing this device with is that this is one of the few games that uses the Genesis, the Sega CD, and the 32X all at the same time. It's not a 32X game that ignores the Sega CD. It's not a Sega CD game that ignores the 32X. This requires that all of them be running at the same time. So I figured that's the best way to push this device. So I let it run for quite some time, and it passed. It worked great. There was no problems, except one, which is that this thing got pretty warm when it was doing that. And I mean, I guess that makes sense. It does have to power all that stuff all at once. But it wasn't like hot. It's not like I touched it and went, ah, damn it, like, or anything like that. It was just warm. It was noticeably warm, and technically that's a negative. So I wanted you guys to be aware of that. But aside from that, I really have nothing bad to say about it. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It's actually extremely convenient. I mean, I'm really looking forward to hooking it up into my setup because I have a whole section of my consoles that's powered by just one of these, so I can just conveniently plug in and put it whichever one in I need. So I have a lot less cables over there. Now that I have this thing, and I can use that same one cable into this and then plug this into multiple things, the wiring back there is going to get a lot nicer, and so I'm very happy about that. And so that's really it, guys. Ultimately, stamp of approval. I think you should check it out. Thank you to Ben for hooking me up with this. It was really very cool of him to do that. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all later.